Jose Luis kind of pulled us down a little ways, and then he got out the towel to kind of wipe down the bow of the boat, because these are really nice skiffs and they keep them super clean. And it was just covered in mud from this caiman. And he goes to dunk this towel, and the caiman had taken off, and we thought it was long gone. But he goes to dunk this towel in the water on the side of the skiff, and I shit you not, the thing came full out of the water and missed his hand by like 3 inches or less. I mean, snapped right at his hand.
That was Nick Torres with a close encounter with one of the many wild animals in northern Argentina. Caiman, piranhas, and Golden Dorado today on the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show.
Welcome to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show, where you discover tips, tricks, and tools from the leading names in fly fishing today.
Hey, how you doing today? I wanted to give you a quick highlight of this huge Argentina Golden Dorado trip we are giving away right now in connection with Waterworks-Lamson. You can head over to wetflyswing.com/gold, GOLD, to sign up right now. Or you can just click the link in our show notes that'll take you there, and you can sign up really quick and enter this massive, amazing giveaway. We're going to dig into it today and shed some light on the trip, so you know what to expect. And also, if you maybe want to put this trip together on your own, we're going to talk about why this place is so powerful. Today's episode is presented by the Fly Fishing Film Tour. They're back again. Don't miss this year's F3T as it returns to theaters near you for another huge season on the water. They have a cool little trailer section on their website you can check out right now and see what sort of movies are on tap this year and over the past years. You can check it all out right now. I know they've had some Golden Dorado. Just can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but check it out. Always loaded with action and all sorts of greatness. wetflyswing.com/F3T to find a showing near you. That's wetflyswing.com/F3T. Check it out. Nick Torres from Waterworks-Lamson takes us on a journey today to one of the most spectacular locations on the globe. Northern Argentina for Golden Dorado, Piranha, some pig animal that we talk about. This place, actually, rhino animal. This is really amazing, actually. This episode is sweet. Nick really gives us a feel of what it actually feels like to go there. He talks about this 22-pound Dorado he caught on the last cast. It was definitely the last cast. His guide even said, this is the last cast. We get into it all, so I hope you enjoy this one. And I know my bucket list just keeps growing, so I guess that's a good thing. But let's get into it. So without further ado, here is Nick Torres from Waterworks-Lamson.com. How's it going, Nick?
Great. How's it going today, Dave?
Good. Thanks for putting this one together. We were just talking about the last time you were on, episode 213. We talked about another great trip. It seems like you're going on all these great trips around the world. Is this something like this was part of your master plan?
No, not at all. This one was kind of a little bit out of necessity. We were needing some content on our new rods and the velocity rods and the light speed F reels, and just kind of came about organically through talking with Santi over at Nervous Waters and some other friends in the industry. Put together a little trip, and pretty stoked to give one away too. Yeah, and honestly, it's been kind of a busy year. Couple of trips, but one of them was just a friend's wedding in Mexico, and was lucky enough to tack on a couple extra days of fishing, and but it's been a good year. Yeah,
no, that's great. I think it's awesome. I think we're all chomping at the bit to get out and do some more trips, as we're heading out of away from COVID slowly. So this is good. And we're going to talk about this Dorado trip, and we're going to dig into this, and we'll talk a little bit about the giveaway, and we'll let people know where we're going to send them. But let's just take it from the top really quick, because you were here, I think, episode 213. It's been about a year. So since then, give us the update. Any big things going on with you and or Lamson?
Yeah, we had our rod releases this summer. Some new freshwater rods, the Velocity and the Purist rods. One kind of an all-around workhorse rod in the Velocity, and a real kind of dry fly specialist in that Purist rod. And then, just getting back out there and finally getting to do a little more traveling again, something that I was definitely itching for. Hit up a couple of cool little shows this summer between, the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers Rendezvous, and then a deal we do out in New York as well. And yeah, I guess just enjoying getting back to some sense of normalcy, however brief.
That's right.
It is. It's like, it seems like we start getting back to normal, and then something else happens. A war gets declared, or
That's what I was just saying. My buddies are joking about, because we had a Will Blair on. He talked about that Kamchatka trip, and we were like, man, we're getting fired up. And I think we even talked about it, right? Like, yeah, this would be a cool trip to do. And also you turn around, you're like, well, now that Putin's kind of going crazy, you're kind of thinking that's probably not going to happen anytime soon, right?
It's tough. Yeah, it's like you can't really plan out a year out, because you don't know what the geopolitical situation is going to be at the time. So
yeah,
it's just the world we're in right now.
Well, let's focus on, for this one, where you headed for Golden Dorado, because this is a species that, I would love to get to. I think it's on everybody's bucket list, and it just seems like one of those species, like, it's really hard to do. So maybe start there. Is this trip a pretty big challenge to put together?
It's really not too bad at all, and especially with working with Nervous Waters, they handle everything as far as logistics and getting you all the information you need to prepare for the trip, figuring out the best way to get you there, whether it's, ground transfers or air transfers from Buenos Aires to Corrientes. So the Golden Dorado fishing is in the northern section of Argentina. We were fishing the province of Corrientes, and just an amazing Dorado centered program that Nervous Waters runs there between two different lodges that they have up there in the north.
There you go. So what's that look like? Give us a little rundown. So if
Sure.
you're leaving, say, Idaho, where are you going? To give us a little itinerary there.
Yeah, so the main flight is going to be, getting down to Buenos Aires, Argentina. It's the capital of Argentina, one of the bigger cities in the world. And if you get a chance, I do highly recommend spending a day or two in Buenos Aires, either before or after your trip, just to get a sense of what that city's like, because it really is one of the coolest cities, anywhere in the world. But yeah, so it's a long trip. Obviously you're flying, halfway around the world, basically down to the southern hemisphere, especially the southern part of South America. But it was pretty painless for us. It was 2 flights. We flew Boise to Atlanta to Buenos Aires. And the Atlanta Buenos Aires flight is, it's an overnight flight. So you try to sleep most of the time, and you wake up and you're pretty much there, and you're good to go. Then we did a ground transfer from Buenos Aires to Pira Lodge, which I think, hindsight being 2020, I might have just done the flight up to Corrientes. It still would have been another 3-hour drive from the airport in Corrientes to get to the lodge, but it did end up being a pretty long drive. I think we left at 11 o'clock a.m. Argentina time and got to the lodge at like 9-10 o'clock at night almost.
Oh wow.
So yeah, it was a long drive, but mostly, a lot of it's just because the fuel situation down there, a lot of cars, it's very different than the US. There's a lot of cars in Argentina that run on natural gas, actually, instead of gasoline. And it's cheaper, but they have a lot less room in the tank. And so you get about 100 kilometers on a tank of natural gas in the car, and you got to stop again to fill up. And so there's a lot of stops on the way, and one flat tire that you had to, stop and change.
Yeah. Is it like a white knuckled sort of thing? You're on the edges of cliffs and things like that, or is it pretty standard?
No, not at all. It's like you're on an interstate, in the Midwest or something.
Gotcha.
The landscape outside of Buenos Aires is called the Pampas, and it's kind of like the Great Plains. And so a lot of that drive is just driving through farmland on a very well kept interstate. So you're going 65, 70 miles an hour the whole way, and
you're cruising.
Yeah. And it was super relaxed. You stop, get lunch and drink some mate, and
yeah.
So even the drive up there, even though it was a long drive, it was really chill. It was just that after a long flight and than another long drive on top of it. You're definitely ready once you get to the lodge. Let's just say that.
Yeah, you're right. Well, take us there. Take us there now. Yeah, and I wanted to touch on the Buenos Aires a little bit, but give us the lodge. So you have this 10-hour drive. You get to the lodge. Take us there. What's that look like? What you get to? What are you seeing?
So you get to Pira Lodge, and there's about an hour drive on a gravel road from the highway to get there. And so you're basically in the middle of nowhere, and then all of a sudden the gates open up to this just beautiful manicured estancia, basically, with, you know, multiple housing buildings and a main building and a bar and a dining hall, and you're literally, you know, 150 yards away from the banks of the, you know, Iberra Marsh there. And so
oh wow,
it was pretty awesome, you know, pulling up to that place.
So you're right there. So you're right near fishing.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's about a 150-yard walk from where you're sleeping and eating breakfast to the dock on the marshland there. Another thing is I should explain the Iberra marshland system. It's a marshlands in northern Argentina that's larger than the Florida Everglades, and it's all protected. So it's like a national preserve. So there isn't a lot of people or buildings or anything like that you're going to see pretty much anywhere. And they have a really cool system set up they have flat skiffs, like Florida flats. I think they had Hells Bay flat skiffs. They had like 3 or 4 of them that they use to navigate these marshes, because, I mean, in some places you're dealing with some really skinny water. And we were dealing with a really bad drought at the time, so the water was low to begin with. But man, these guys can really handle those boats in the marsh. It was impressive.
That's cool. So now you're fishing, because there's a couple different ways to fish Dorado, right? You have kind of the marsh or the open versus, say, the jungle. What were you guys fishing there?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways, really. A lot of people are familiar with the Golden Dorado fishing in Bolivia, which is, you know, that's probably going to be more intense jungle, really small, you know, almost trout-like rivers. Whereas in Argentina, you do have that, you know, kind of more in the northwest, Salta, Juramento, those areas. But where we were, the marshlands, it's clear water, but it's marsh, right? And so a lot of sediment and stuff. A lot of the fishing was close quarters, throwing a lot of topwater stuff. Like the divers were working really good for me, and some other flies that we got from Umpqua that were working really well. But yeah, it's you know, fishing off the front of a skiff. Your guide is pulling you through these narrow channels. You know, you're hitting the banks, but also fishing like the middle of the channel, which was something that I had to kind of get used to. You know, I do a lot of bass fishing, and I'm used to hitting structure, hitting the bank, casting at the bank all the time. And they really had to steer me like, no, put it right in the middle, because those fish are sitting in the deepest part of that channel, just waiting for something to come by and smash it.
Oh, wow. No kidding.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so talk about the Dorado. So why, I mean, for those that a lot of people probably haven't fished for them, why are they so unique, special? Why is this so much different than, say, any other amazing species you could talk about?
Oh, man. They're just like the perfect game fish, honestly. Like, as far as a freshwater game fish, you really couldn't design anything better for fly fishing. You know, they're aggressive, they're ferocious, they got these big teeth. You know, when you put a fly in front of them, they're going to hit it. And when they hit it, they're going to start jumping, which is obviously, you know, every fisherman loves seeing a fish jumping out of the water when they hook it. So, and they jump and jump and jump. That's the other thing, is like they don't stop jumping.
Oh, they jump the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
So basically, yeah, you have these fish, or you get them on, and we could talk more about the size too, but they're cartwheeling, they're doing all sorts of just madness until you get them in. And how long is that what it's like? And then how long does it take it to get them in?
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the name of the game. Also, I mean, there's just so many different ways you can fish for them. You can sight fish to them. You know, you can blind cast for them. You can swing flies, just depending on the ecosystem that you're fishing. And I mean, they're not going to run out a lot of line on you. They don't go on really long runs unless, unless you get into a really big one on the big river. But so for the most part, it's like jump, strip them in, almost, like a large, think about a large bass or large smallmouth. As far as the fight, they like to dog down after they get a few jumps in them, especially the bigger ones. They'll kind of dog down like a striper or something like that. But yeah, I mean, they're probably my favorite personal fish out there as far as the freshwater fish. I just love them.
So that's it. So you found so you're going back on this trip. So you're going to do Dorado again.
It's one of those things. So my dad's from Argentina, and
cool.
When I was a kid, he would bring me these fishing magazines, when I was in high school, and I would look at these cover shots of just massive Golden Dorado and be like, what is that? And ever since then, I've liked them a lot, and I've had a few chances to fish for them. Before this, I lived in Argentina a little bit in like 2010, 11, and just did a lot of DIY stuff, but never had a lodge experience like this one. It was definitely a different level.
Yeah, definitely. That's cool. So, okay. So this is giving us a little flavor of what we're expecting. And so and how big are these fish? So talk about what do you get? What's average and what's some bigger ones? What's a big fish?
Yeah, so that's kind of the cool thing about this program with Nervous Waters and these two lodges. So two lodges, they're very different. The first lodge, Pira Lodge, and the marshlands, that's going to be more of a numbers, game. You're going to catch a good number of fish each day. Average size there, a good average size is probably going to be 5 to 7 pounds. I did manage to catch a 12+ pound fish each day that I was at Pira, so I had some good luck with that. And so, yeah, like an 8 to 10 pound fish would be a good fish. But I mean, they get up to 15, 20 pounders in there. They're there. It's just finding them.
So it's kind of like a steelhead, similar to a steelhead size.
Yeah. On the large side. I mean, you could compare it to that, especially these fish almost have that salmonoid head to them, it's like this, it's almost like a salmon style head with like the flank of a striper or something. But
yeah.
So that's kind of going to be like the upper, level of size at Pira Lodge is that 15 to 20 pounds. And then, 4.5 hour drive from Pira, you go to Suinda Lodge, which is a lodge that's on the banks of the upper Parana River, the main Parana River, which is, it's the second largest river in South America after the Amazon.
Oh, wow.
So if you think about like fishing the Mississippi River or something on that scale, that's kind of the size that you're dealing with there. And that fishery is a trophy, a large fishery, less numbers, but you have the chance at a true giant there. Some of the biggest Dorado anywhere in the world.
There you go. So you got so they have it all here. What's and including the sight fishing. So you did some sight fishing out there?
A little bit. Like it really depends. At Suinda is kind of where you're going to do more of the sight fishing. The upper Parana River is so large that there's a lot of islands, and then there's a lot of almost like flats areas where you'll have just a sandy bottom that's 3 to 4 feet deep that'll stretch for a large distance. And you kind of cruise those flats in the boat looking for schools of sabalo, which are the main bait fish that the Dorado feed on. And the water on those sand flats is clear enough that you can really see stuff. And you just look for those yellow flashes around the schools of sabalo. I didn't get into one sight fishing on this trip, but I did back in like 2014, just kind of DIYing it, walking those flats. And it's really cool when it all comes together.
It's cool. What is the, if you take an example of a take or a hookup on a fish, do you have a memorable fish that you can kind of tell us that story real quick?
Yeah, probably the last fish of the trip for me ended up being my biggest fish of the trip. It was, second to last day. We were at Suinda Lodge. You hear about those last cast stories a lot.
Yep.
It was legit last cast.
Did you actually say this is my last cast?
Guide shouted it out. He's like, okay, last cast. It was, it was pretty much dark. I had just thrown on actually a big musky fly. that I took some musky flies down there, thinking some of those big fish at Suinda might be into them, and threw out a big backhand cast, and we were actually swinging a fly on a sinking line, and about halfway through that swing, got that grab, that just massive grab that it's a good one, and put the metal down and put a good hook set into it, and then you just hear it coming up, and then you really know, like, it sounds like a little kid jumping off the dock or something.
Wow.
When you hear that splash. And yeah, it was pretty cool. We got it to the boat and scooped it after a few jumps. Ended up being a 22-pound fish.
Oh, wow. Huge.
Biggest one of the trip for me. My photographer actually got an even bigger one that same day, that morning. But yeah, I'd say that one was probably the most memorable for me too, just because it was one of those, every once in a while you almost feel like it's going to happen before it happens. You know what I mean? Like, every once in a while you just get that feeling, and it was one of those situations. It was just like, oh, this feels good. We're in the right spot, the right time.
Right.
The sun just went down. Come on, like, we got about 5 minutes left and we're leaving, and then boom, it just happens. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's one I will definitely never forget.
And we could probably see that on social media somewhere. Can we see that picture of you with the fish?
It'll be up there at some point. I don't know if I've really posted it yet, but yeah, I mean, once we start blasting the giveaway and stuff, I'm sure it'll be up there. I'll send it over to you so you can put it up the podcast. It was a fun one.
Oh, good. I'll put that in the show notes and put it out there. And what was the line? You mentioned a sinking line. What were you using for lines there? Do you have to have a bunch of different lines when you go out there?
Yeah. So for those, I mean, I took quite a lot of gear down, mostly because we were really testing out these velocity rods. We were fishing mostly the velocity 8-weight, had some 7 weights and some 9 weights as well. Took a couple of those cobalt saltwater 9 weights just for a bigger rod for throwing those big sinking lines at Suinda. But like at Pira Lodge, a 7-8 weight is really all you need, because you're mostly only throwing floating lines there. And then at Suinda, it's going to be kind of a combination between floating lines and sinking lines. And had some rods to try to target Pacu as well, which are those big, dinner plate shaped fish that have the human-like teeth. They eat the nuts that fall out of the trees and stuff.
Oh, right. Yeah, the Pacu. Did you catch one of those? We
did not find any of those. It was a real issue because the drought was just, I think it's one of the worst droughts they've had in 50, 60 years. And so normally the water's underneath the branches of the trees, and those fish hang out there and wait for fruit. But
oh yeah, that's right. You use the tree, the branch. You use like the flies are like, they look like shrubbage, right? Or they're like leaves and stuff.
Yeah, it's basically a ball. It looks like a gumball almost.
Yeah.
And you just plop it down. It looks like the fruits that fall out of the trees.
Right.
But the water was just so low that it had receded away from the trees. And so,
oh, gotcha.
Yeah, it made the Pacu fishing a little more challenging. But normally, I think, you can expect to get into a few Pacu while you're there for sure.
Gotcha. So you're using line wise, and you're just using a sink tip on your lines. Is that kind of what it is? Yeah, we're fishing all Scientific Angler lines. So on the sink lines, we're using the custom Jungle tip line that they have, which is it's a sinking line that you can really customize for whatever size rod you're fishing. Anything from a 12 weight down to like a 7 or 8 weight. And so you can actually cut that tip to size. I found it worked pretty well for us just out of the box, because we were really trying to get down there. It was a fast current, in that big river, and you're swinging these flies in front of structure like boulders or trees or things like that. And so, you want to get a little depth on them, get in the zone, but get a little depth.
Yeah. And then we are also using the Jungle. Oh gosh, I don't have it right in front of me here, but the warm water Jungle floating line, Titan.
Oh, the Titan. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And those two lines just were great for us.
That's it. So you got some sink tips in there, and then on that fish, that 22 pounder you had it. So were you swinging?
I should probably explain like the leader and
Yeah. Why don't you do that real quick?
And tip it and everything.
Yeah.
Because you're definitely you're throwing like 40-pound fluoro. You could even probably go bigger than that with a 30 to 40-pound wire leader. These fish have huge teeth. Well, not huge teeth, but really sharp teeth and fairly big teeth, and they can cut through even the wire leaders. Like they can cut through those on occasion. So it's definitely a must to take a lot of wire down there if you're going to be fishing for them. And, a good pair of pliers that you can cut the wire with is kind of a necessity as well. But yeah, just an FYI.
Yeah, that's right. And you're kind of on the boat the whole time on the skiff?
Yeah. So at Pira Lodge, we did on occasion get out and walk the banks and kind of fish the banks, 2 anglers at a time. And that was really cool, being able to kind of walk and stalk them a little bit.
Oh yeah.
But no, most of the trip, and especially at Suinda Lodge on the main Parana River, you're in the boat. There are some opportunities to get out and walk those flats that I was talking about. At the same time, there's huge freshwater rays that like to hang out on those flats, and you don't want to get stuck by one of those either.
Oh yeah.
They can shoot a pretty bad barb into your leg or whatever.
There's a few things down there that can kill you, or at least maim you pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I should talk about PETA a little bit, because at Pira Lodge I was just blown away by the ecosystem there in the marshlands. It was just life everywhere. Like the water was full of life, the land and the banks were full of life. The sky was, it was just like hundreds of different bird species, 8-foot, 10-foot caiman crocs lining the banks of the river. Oh, everywhere.
So how are you getting out of the way of those guys?
Giant capybara, which is the world's largest rodent. It's almost like a small hippo that's covered in fur, if you think about it, because they hang out on the banks and they swim around in the water, but they look like a giant rat or gerbil or something. And yeah, those things and the big crocs were basically everywhere.
And so this is kind of like if you're up in Alaska with the bears, where they're not really messing with you too much unless you surprise them.
Exactly. Yeah. Like when I got out and when we walked the bank a little bit, like you'd be, I don't know, 20, 30 feet away from a caiman. And they're not all really huge. Like some of them are, they range in size between 3 feet and, up to 8, 10, 12. I wasn't expecting to see them that big. Like it was no, like I've always thought of caiman as being like mini crocs,
right.
We actually had a situation on day 3 at Pira Lodge where our guide, he's pulling us through this little channel, and I'm on the bow fishing. And when I say these little channels, we're talking like 10 feet wide, 15 feet wide, sometimes 5 feet wide. So really skinny. And he's kind of hugging the bank a little bit, and we didn't see this thing. I'm on the bow. We're literally like 12 inches from the bank, kind of brushing up into it. And there must have been a big caiman just sitting underwater on that bank. And we basically like sandwiched this croc into the bank with the skiff.
Oh man.
None of us had seen it. And like, I'm putting a cast out, and all of a sudden it's just whack. And this thing just smacks the side of the boat. Like I almost fell off the other side.
Holy
just
cow.
Threw mud and water all over the bow of the boat. And we're like, oh man, that was interesting. And like, geez.
Pissed him off.
Yeah, exactly. No, he was pissed. But floated down like, I don't know, 30, 40 yards. Jose Luis kind of pulled us down a little ways, and then he got out the towel to kind of wipe down the bow of the boat, because these are really nice skiffs and they keep them super clean. And it was just covered in mud from this caiman. And he goes to dunk this towel, and the caiman had taken off, and we thought it was long gone. But he goes to dunk this towel in the water on the side of the skiff, and I shit you not, the thing came full out of the water and missed his hand by like,
oh wow,
3 inches or less. Snapped right at his hand, came out of the water, probably 2 feet out of the water with its head. And he was like, you can tell he was a little bit shaky. These guys are pretty badass, but He's like, yeah, I've been
Wow.
guiding here for 12 years and that's never happened. So
He almost lost his hand.
it was, and me and Jay are looking at each other like, who's going to drive the boat out of here?
Right.
Because it's just a maze. And
So he wasn't playing it off like, sometimes this happens and they play it off like no big deal. You could actually see it was a big deal on this guy's face.
I mean, to a certain degree, just the fact that he's like, yeah, I could see it on his face. The fact that he's like 12 years of doing this and nothing like that's ever even come close to happening. And
God.
And he's just
crazy.
He's laughing, but it's a little bit of a nervous laugh, and we're all just like, holy shit.
Today's episode is presented by Stonefly Nets, putting quality before quantity with their handcrafted custom wood landing nets. If you've listened before, you know my net history. I wasn't much of a net person until connecting with Ethan, and ever since then, it has been awesome. It's made everything much easier, landing fish, taking the fly out. Literally, if you are not a net person, you'll find that sometimes you don't even have to touch the fly or the fish. Keep it in the water. Don't touch the fly, don't touch the fish, keep it in the water, release it. A net is where to go. I'm not sure if we could use these nets on Golden Dorado. I'm pretty sure we could. Maybe we'll leave that for Ethan to chime in here eventually and see if we've got a Golden Dorado net. But he's all about customizing, so he's going to put it together for you when you get a chance. Check in with Ethan at their website, stoneflynets.com, and he can build something to order, or you can select from sizes and wood options on the website. Ethan has always the great memory of his connection with his grandma and the family back in the day, and he always thinks about this when building these custom nets. He wants this to last a lifetime and allow you to pass it down for generations. That's my plan, and I'm excited to share them with you. Check it out, wetflyswing.com/stonefly to get started right now. STONEFLY. Go for it. Okay, back to the show. And you have these other things, these hairy hippo things. I mean,
Capybara.
Yeah, give us a minute summary on these guys. So what now, is this just as dangerous or well?
No, they're not dangerous at all. No, they're vegetarians.
No.
They're basically like giant like dogs on the bank of the river.
Gotcha. Giant
hamsters, I guess you'd call them. No, they live in big family groups, and so when you see them, you see a bunch of them. From little babies to big, we're sitting there thinking like, how are these things not just getting snacked on by these gators all the time? But I think it's that whole, family group safety in numbers type thing.
Yeah.
But it's just cool seeing so much wildlife, and just the bird life there is incredible. Like if you're a birder, it would be really cool.
This is epic.
And as you're pulling through the marsh, I mean, the water is literally, you're watching like fish swimming through the water everywhere. Like whether it's piranha, sabalo, there's a lot of smaller little, bait fish, and so just life everywhere in the marsh.
Yeah. So you're not really swimming. You're not taking a dip in the water out there too often.
No. So the piranhas was another thing that surprised me. They were everywhere, and almost to the point, you catch the first one and you're like, oh, cool, big piranha. It's a new species, but they literally slice your fly down to the nub.
Oh, wow.
In seconds. Their teeth are, they're like fly tying scissors. It's just, and they're everywhere. And so, the first morning, I think I went through like 9 streamers or something like that before lunch, like just fighting off the piranha. So you won't really want to, you won't want to stick your toes in there with like a cut on them or something like that, because there would be some consequences.
Damn, this is cool. So this is, that's the cool thing about this area is not only do you have the Dorado and the great fishing, but it's a unique experience in all the wildlife. And you're painting a pretty cool picture. What else?
It reminded me of like scenes of Africa and stuff that I've seen, just with all the gators and the capybara on the banks. It's like a mini, I don't know. I haven't been to Africa. That's on the list for sure. But
exactly,
I've seen enough National Geographic shows to see those gators over there. And that's kind of what it reminded me of. I'd always thought of Caiman, even in South America, as being small, like 2 to 4 to 6 feet, maybe, like the 6-footers were the big ones. But no, there's big ones at this place. That one that we bumped up against the bank, it was as big as our skiff, like as long as our skiff. It was probably like 12-footer, like. Oh
my gosh. Cool. Well, this is it.
It was cool.
So you painted an awesome picture and I want to go back to that fish. So we had that last day, the 22-pounder. So you had the sinking line, and were you just swinging this across off of the skiff and just like you looked at a spot and said, that looks like a deep hole, I'm going to swing it there?
Yeah. Well, so the guides have it pretty dialed in, and for some reason that day was the big fish day. So my photographer Travis that morning and myself that morning, we both got into larger fish. I started out that day with like a 16-17 pound fish first thing in the morning, and Travis was in another boat and he hooked into and landed a like 28-29 pound fish, massive.
Wow.
And then I finished that night with that 22. And so I don't know what it was about that day, but that seemed to be the golden day for us. Yeah. And the program there at Suinda, it was really dictated by the heat and the drought that we were dealing with. I mean, they always, I think, start pretty early, but we were on the boats at like 5:30 in the morning, and then, out there and start casting in the dark while the sun's coming up.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And then back to the lodge at like 10:30, nice long siesta and lunch break. And then back to the boats at like 5:30, 6 o'clock to fish until dark. So you're really targeting sunrise, sunset.
Oh, okay.
Pira Lodge was a little bit different. It was more like 8 to noon and then 4 to 8 or something like that. But it was just, I mean, we were dealing with like 105, 110 degree days there at Suinda. So it was hot.
It was hot. And again, you're not jumping in the water to cool off. You're just sitting out in the heat, loving it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you jump in the pool once you get back to the lodge.
Oh, there's a pool right there. Oh, of course, there's a pool.
Yeah. I mean, I should talk about that a little bit more. These lodges are not your average.
This is a 5-star or whatever, 6-star.
It was legit 5-6 star all the way across the board, as far as the rooms and the accommodations, the hospitality and the staff and the food. The food was just, the food was the star of the show.
What's a good meal, like at, say, lunch or dinner?
Well, yeah, Argentina is pretty famous for their food. I don't know if you've heard that before, but
yeah, no.
A lot of people come back from that country raving about the food, and it's a beef centric culture. So
there you go.
A lot of meat.
Yep.
Argentines are famous for doing asados, which basically is like a barbecue, but for them it's kind of an all day experience, and it's a lot of different meat. And so, I mean, the first night we got there, we started out with a lamb on the cross for dinner, where they butterfly open a whole lamb, slow cook it on the side of a fire throughout the day.
Jeez.
It's probably one of my favorite meals. It's pretty amazing. And then hors d'oeuvres before, lunch and dinner every day, and amazing desserts, and just, yeah, really, really well professionally trained 5-star chefs at both lodges. They're great. Danielle, he was awesome. He would come out and kind of explain the food and the meal for the night.
Oh, right.
Pretty much everything is locally sourced, which makes it really good as well. So just really, really good food.
Perfect. You got it all. So you got the food, you got the swimming pool, the law, and the fishing, of course, is, and when you go back to the fishing, is it like numbers of fish? So on that place where you're getting less size, but a lot more fish, what do you get? Are you getting kind of half a dozen fish a day, or are you getting a lot more than that?
More than that. A dozen to, I mean, it depends on the day, but like that first day for me, it's pretty special. Lost count of fish, honestly.
So you're just catching tons of Dorado.
The morning was a little tough. We got into a couple right away, and then it was just Piranha City everywhere we went. But that evening, Jose, and he was the head guide there, one of the better guiding experiences that I've probably ever had. He was just awesome, really experienced. He's guided all over the place and knows that water better than most. And that
There you
night
go.
he put me on him, and we were, catch fish, sit down, talk to Jose for a while, and, drink a beer and get up and catch a couple more. And, I was putting him on the rod, getting him on some
Oh, really?
fish. And I was just,
Oh, cool. You were pulling?
I tried pulling, and it was not like pulling on the flats anywhere that I've been. It was tough in that marsh because it's pretty decently strong current.
Oh, okay.
And it's just mucky kind of down on the bottom, and I'm not an experienced puller to begin with. So, but like we could hug up he would basically use that pole as an anchor, and hug up on the bank, and we would fish, off the bow. And so that's what we did with Jose.
Yeah. So he'd hold you there in the spot, and then, wow, this is cool. Yeah. So this sounds like we said, this has kind of got it all, wildlife and, the lodge. What else would you throw out there, as far as this trip? I mean, we've talked a little about the fishing. Anything else you want to hit on before we start to head out of here?
Just the people and the staff. I really can't say it enough how great they all were. A real kind of family vibe to the whole thing. They would hang out at dinner and at the bar, and just getting to know the staff and the guides and everybody there. It was special for sure.
That's cool. Did you, and I wanted to head back at the start, we talked about the Buenos Aires, right? Is this a big city? Let's hold that one just for a second and talk about how many nights you were there. So you came in for, you did the hour-long trip down the gravel road, get to the lodge. So now you're there for what, like 5 nights or something like that?
Yeah, so the Dorado program with Nervous Waters, the 2-lodge program, it's a 6-day fishing program. So it was 7 nights, 6 days, 3 days fishing at Pira Lodge, and then 3 days fishing at Suinda.
Mm-hmm.
And we went straight to the lodges once we got to Buenos Aires. After we were done fishing, we did spend a couple nights in Buenos Aires before we flew back to the States. But yeah, that's kind of the program for the fishing. It's a 6-day, 7-night, and that's kind of it's like a double program. So a lot of people will just do 4 nights, 3 days fishing at Pira Lodge, and that'll be their trip, or
gotcha.
Vice versa with Suinda. This program is kind of for like the hardcore Dorado fishing experience, kind of.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, so basically you guys were there a week, and then so on your way out, you hop back in the car and go. And did you stick? You spent a day or two?
We actually flew back. So we flew back from Suinda to Buenos Aires, because Suinda is a lot closer to the Corrientes airport. It's only about an hour drive, and we were able to just drive from the lodge to the airport, hop a flight. It was like 2 hours back to Buenos Aires, and then spent a couple days there, and I got to show my buddies around a little bit because
good.
I know that city pretty well.
Because you know it. Well, what makes that city so special? I mean, it sounds like it's huge, but what is so cool about that city?
Oh, it's it's hard to explain. Kind of, it's very different than what you would expect a Latin American city to be like, or a South American city to be like. It's very unique in Latin America that way. They call it kind of the Paris of South America, I guess, because it's very European influenced, right? All the architecture is very European. It's, it's kind of classic Parisian architecture. In the late 1800s, they had some of the best architects from France come and do a lot of their buildings. And and just the culture, the people, the food.
Yeah.
It's one of the world's great cities. It's 40% of the national population live in the Buenos Aires area. I think it's like 8 million people, something like that.
8 million. And are they taking siestas there?
They do. I mean, it depends what part of the city you're in, but no, you're right.
Because I love any place that takes a siesta. That's part of the reason why I'm thinking I think they got it figured out. You know what I mean? Take a nap in the middle of the day sounds like a great idea.
They really do. Like, stores close at midday. It's just part of the culture. And, when you eat dinner at 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at night, every night, and then you get up at 7 in the morning to go to work. And so that's just kind of part of their process. And it depends. Like, obviously downtown Buenos Aires, in the bustling city, nothing ever closes.
Yeah.
But like in the boroughs and the different neighborhoods. You think about it like New York City. You got Manhattan, but then you also have like Queens and Brooklyn and the Bronx and all these different boroughs and neighborhoods, right?
Yeah.
And that's where it's a little bit more of a slower pace. It's the Kioscos and the grocery stores will close from like 2 to 4 or something like that. And it's nice.
That's it. And it sounds like this is obviously a full experience when you compare, say, the fishing you had there with the Dorado and everything versus just the whole experience. Is that kind of like a 50-50 thing, or do you feel like the trip itself is just, one thing kind of is more powerful for you?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, like that's the whole point of this stuff is the fishing is awesome, but it really is about the whole experience, the people, the places, the wildlife, it's the whole package. That's why I love doing this kind of stuff. It's just, I feel like I grow as a person every time I come back from one of these things. And it really is the whole experience. I mean, yeah, you could totally just, especially if you had your own plane or something, you could fly right into the lodge, fly back out to Buenos Aires and head straight back to the States and head home. But, you'd just be missing out on a lot of stuff. And that's some of the best stuff of the trip.
Give yourself, I always like you're going doing for a week, but it would be nice to even have like a month or two, where you're like, hey, I'm just going to, take a month or two and hang out here and really experience, the people. And right. That's kind of I mean, if we could all do that.
That's what I did. That's what I did basically out of college. I was like, I'm moving down there and, got to spend a good year down there and kind of get to know stuff a little bit better than you normally would. It helped that I had, family and relatives and stuff down there that I could hit up. But
yeah, I can't remember if we talked about that on the last episode, but so your dad did you grow up down there, or what was the connection there?
No, I grew up in South Dakota. But my dad was from Argentina originally. And so I had these aunts and uncles and cousins that I didn't really know too well and wanted to get down there and kind of experience that whole scene. No, I'm from South Dakota. My dad's been in South Dakota for almost 50 years at this point, but that's where my mom's from. So they have they met in Spain in the 70s and then moved back to the States, and it's a whole deal. But that was kind of my connection down there. So it is, I do have, a more kind of a deeper connection probably than the average person that's going to go down there. But I think everybody, especially my friends that have gone down and, gets that same experience of just the hospitality, the food, the people, the places.
That's it. That's really cool. Yeah. So nice. Well, I feel like I have a good feel, a little bit of what it's going to take in this trip. Did we do a good job highlighting enough things here, or anything else you want to dig into on the fishing?
No, I think that's I guess I didn't really tell you about, so we did have one of our crew members go down pretty hard with a stomach bug.
There you go.
And that threw a little wrench in things, and we're all very worried about the COVID situation, but multiple tests show that he was good. But it definitely took him out of commission, and we still have no clue what it was. Nobody, we were all eating and drinking the same stuff. Nobody else had any issues. But yeah, I mean, make sure you bring, some medications and stuff down there just to have, just in case. You never know.
That's right. You need some strong stuff, and probably activated charcoal probably isn't going to be good enough down there. You probably need something a little more serious. Which does work well.
It was weird. Especially, Jay has traveled all over the world, been more places than just about anybody I know. Kind of the last person I expected to get a little bug like that, but it just shows you like it can happen to anybody, and it's just
you gotta be ready.
It's you just gotta hope for the best, but prepare.
Nice. Well, let's do the quick little out of here, kind of top flies, and maybe a couple of tips and maybe some resources here. So what were you mentioned those flies getting eaten up? What was your, if you had to pick 2 flies for Dorado, what are they?
Well, there's the Andino Deceiver. It's kind of a bait fish pattern, but honestly for me, there's 2 patterns that really killed it for me down there that I got from Umpqua flies. One of them is called a Jungle Junkie, and gosh, I know the original tire that licensed it to him, but I can't think of his name right now. And that thing was just a big fish magnet. I mean, I think I caught all my big fish at Pira Lodge on that fly. And then the other one was the divers. So a red and white diver was really good. I'd say those two flies were definitely my two favorites of the trip.
There you go. And I'll put some links out in the show notes to maybe
mice flies.
Oh,
yeah.
And mice. You're doing mice too?
Yeah. So at Pira Lodge, you can catch them on the mouse pretty consistently.
Oh, wow.
You know, functioning a lot kind of like the diver. You're just kind of swinging it, stripping it through those narrow channels, and they'll come up, and they like to eat topwater for sure.
Oh, amazing. Gosh, so you got the mice too. Okay. And what about, so you're out there on this skiff or maybe on the bank, and give us a couple of tips. What's the guide telling you? How are you, if somebody was out there getting ready for this, you know, what should they be thinking about?
Yeah. I mean, just practice casting in both, depending on which lodge you're going to go to, both close quarters and long distance, with big flies and rods ranging, you know, from the 7 to the 9 weights, especially, you know, those big flies in close quarters where you're really only putting it out 20, 30, 40 feet. Just practice your accuracy. But yeah, I mean, just be proficient with 7, 8 weight rod and you'll be good.
Okay. 7, 8 weight. Yep. And then, and we touched on that a little bit. If anybody wants to check out what you guys have, you have obviously all the reels, but this rod line, is this something?
Yeah.
Talk about that just briefly. Yeah.
Yeah. Those velocity rods just killed it. They're made to be kind of an all around fast action rod. They work perfectly for this situation, especially those 8 weights, because you got a lot of backbone to them. Really easy to turn over those big streamers, those big fly lines, and good fast action to really kind of punch through any wind or you know, anything that comes up. Really enjoyed those rods. We were fishing the Lightspeed F reels, the Speedster S reels. Those things held up beautifully. Just, you know, put the brakes on them, no problem. And yeah, that was the main gear we're using on this trip.
That's it. Okay. And perfect. Well, I think, and it sounds like Nervous Waters, other than, you know, if somebody want to dig into this trip, they could either check in with Nervous Waters, or there are other, you know, what would you recommend for kind of learning more about taking this thing further that we talked about today?
Yeah, definitely check out Nervous Waters. I mean, they're a powerhouse. They have fishing and hunting lodges throughout South America and in the Caribbean, and everything they run is just top notch. And you can also just, you know, follow Pira Lodge, follow Suinda Lodge on Instagram, check out their websites.
Okay.
That'll give you a more detailed look at their programs and the fishery and kind of everything that they have going on. Yeah, so Pira is spelled Pira.
Oh, okay. R-A, yeah. Okay, and then what's the other one?
And then the other one is Suinda, and that's Suinda. Suinda.
Perfect. Good.
Yeah, they're both words from the indigenous language. They're the Guarani indigenous tribal language. I believe Pira means, gosh, I had it, and I think Suinda means fish or something along those lines. They're both fishing related. I just can't remember the exact definitions right now.
That's awesome. We'll get you in the show notes with some fun facts there on that. We'll try to add that as well. And is there any, I'm not curious, you know, we sometimes do a little bit of a conservation kind of minute sort of thing, but are there any big issues people could be thinking about? Did anything come up when you were there where you're like,
well, this year, I mean, it's pretty grim right now as far as the drought situation. It hasn't gotten any better since we were there, and fires have started, which is pretty crazy if you think about, like, it's a tropical climate, normally very humid, lots of water, and for it to be burning as much as it is, especially up on the upper Parana River, it's pretty bad situation. I know they did have to close down Pira Lodge a couple weeks ago because the water was just so low they couldn't navigate the marsh, but I'm sure that's going to recover. You know, the water will come back. It's just, it's, I know it's been really tough on them just this last month or two.
Yeah.
They've done a lot of cool stuff as far as studying Dorado. I know at Suinda Lodge, I think they did something with Patagonia where they tagged a lot of these Golden Dorado to find out, you know, because there's resident fish and then there's migrating fish. And so they're getting a lot of information about that. And I know they worked with Nervous Waters, and I think maybe even like the Keep 'em Wet or Keep Fish Wet campaign. Andy Danielchuk, I think he might have been part of that. Not super educated on that deal that they did, but I know they've done some stuff down there that's been pretty cool as far as conservation and studying these animals.
That's it. That's exactly what I was hoping for. No, I'll follow up on that a little bit and maybe add something in the show notes to what Patagonia, or just so folks can connect more if they want to try to learn more, help out, and do whatever they can. So, cool, Nick. Well, I think I'm feeling pretty good about this. I definitely am excited about this trip. I would love to. I'd love to go down there and win this giveaway we got going. So, tell us again where we should send everybody, either to check out your rods or to get on this giveaway.
Yeah, so the giveaway is going to run April 4th. It's a Monday through the 18th, which is a 2-week run. And it'll be open to anybody to sign up for free. All you got to do is go to the sign up page. We'll have a link in our bio and in both our social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram. There'll be links on our website as well on the homepage. And so you'll be seeing it. We'll be doing posts. Big shout out to the other companies that were involved: Scientific Anglers, Umpqua Flies, Bajio Sunglasses,
cool,
and Duck Camp. They all helped out on this trip as far as gear and everything, and they were all great to work with. And of course, Nervous Waters, one of the coolest outfitting companies in all of South America, between fishing and hunting, and they even have some saltwater projects going. So yeah, they were just great to work with.
That's really cool. Yeah, those are all awesome, and we've connected with some of those companies along the way. So
yeah, and I'm going to get you and Santiago together so you guys can do an episode. Just because he's an interesting guy, and I think he's got a lot to talk about between all the stuff that they do at Nervous Waters that listeners would be pretty stoked on.
Yeah, I would love that. Yeah, I think that would be a good follow-up on this, to really just dig into some more of this stuff. You hear about Nervous Waters so much out there, as you get into it. So obviously they're doing some good stuff. Yeah, I will put this in the show notes, everything to easily enter this giveaway. And we'll just keep in touch with you, Nick, as we're moving forward. I'm sure we're going to find something else to work on, and maybe another cool trip or two. And thanks again for giving us a little view of what this looks like. And it sounds like an amazing trip, and we'll keep in touch with you.
Definitely. Always a pleasure to sit down with you, Dave.
So there you go. If you want to find all the show notes, all the links, and everything else, head over to wetflyswing.com/304. And if you want to get in on this giveaway, wetflyswing.com/gold, GOLD, will direct you to the right place. That'll take you there. This is a big giveaway. This is a massive location that I would love to go on, and I hope you win this thing. Get over there, check it out, and get your name in the hat. And hopefully you will be heading to northern Argentina. But let's just thank Nick for putting this all together, and for the episode today. You can subscribe to this episode by going to wetflyswing.com/subscribe, and you'll get notified when that next episode goes live. And that next episode is going to be a big one. We've got Dominic Swintoski on from Trout Bitten again to break down the whole Euro, mono, tight line, nymphing, and even a little bit of dries. This is another great one with Dominic. So if you want to hear that episode, I believe this is coming out this week. You can subscribe, and I will notify you directly. Or actually, I won't. The computer will. The app that you use, maybe that's Spotify, maybe that's Apple, whatever that is, you'll get notified. You'll just open up your phone and you'll be like, hey, my gosh, look at this. I'm going to learn about this topic. So check it out and go for it. Thank you for the support this week and for the listens. And if you had a chance to share, appreciate you. I appreciate you. I know you have a lot of options out there, so appreciate you listening in all the way till the end here. And I hope you enjoy that next episode. Looking forward to seeing you on the water, or maybe seeing you online.
Thanks for listening to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show. For notes and links from this episode, visit wetflyswing.com.